Any other questions?
You mentioned beating IQ tests. What was that?
Beating IQ tests. Okay, IQ, I don't believe in general intelligence. I think it's poorly defined, so intelligence is what's measured by an IQ test. If you learn something called the consonant mnemonic, I think it's called the consonant number mnemonic, what that teaches you to do is memorize long strings of digits. So you can, and one of the tests of spatial or sequential memory in an IQ test is various items, whether those are proper nouns or numbers. And you can get to the point where you can have somebody hand you, let's say, a $1, a $5, a $10, and a $20 bill, and you can memorize all the serial numbers and letters in 5 seconds apiece and recite them forwards and backwards and tell you which bill they're on. You could get to the point where you're doing that in 2 to 4 weeks of training. Pretty easy. So it would. It's very fun to develop some of those capabilities. So if you want to play around, you could certainly look at some of those. Yeah, the consonant mnemonic can be a lot of fun. You could also memorize long strings of digits, hundreds or thousands. If you really want to give yourself a migraine, you could do that. And they're different. Okay, so pi memorization. There are people who do use mnemonics, so you could call that artificial memory, although I don't think it's artificial. I think you're just building on the framework of human memory. Then there are people, there's a fantastic documentary called Brain Man, and you should watch it. It's incredible. It's about a synesthete, someone who has synesthesia, so they see colors and hear sounds associated with particular numbers, and that is just an unusual talent, God-given talent or curse, depending on how you look at it, that enables them to memorize that number of digits. Most of the world champions are people who have some odd mutation.
Provided that you were eating a diet that you would endorse as balanced, or following very prescriptions like low carb, do you believe with that framework there is such a thing as overeating? Is that possible? Is it possible to have develop an appetite that outpaces what you should be?
With the slow carb diet, I would be extremely surprised if someone were able to overeat if we're talking about calories. I think it's certainly possible to overeat specific types of foods that would then lead to something characteristic of a food allergy. But from a caloric standpoint, it's really hard. If you follow the slow carb diet for, let's just say 10 days, and then I'm like, okay, I want you to have a huge carbohydrate, starchy lunch after having a proper breakfast. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get 2 bites into it and just go, I can't do it. Because protein is it's a natural anorectic appetite suppressant. So I've never seen an example of it, even with people who are 300-400 pounds. And that's part of the reason it works. It's self-regulating in that sense.
So there's a story in saying good calories, bad calories. It's a cycle, the insulin cycle, where you spike, and then you're sort of gradually growing the capacity of your stomach, and you knew close of your vacation society indicators, whether or not you have the right level of blood sugar, whether or not you have a full stomach. And it sounds like you're saying that if you're eating the correct profile of food, it sort of does, you're not going to get into the...
It'll correct that feedback loop, in my experience. So you have the hypothalamus, you have cholecystokinin, among other things, that indicate whether you're full or not. And what you find in the first, let's say, week to 10 days is that those are still completely out of whack. One of the ways that you can prevent the hunger pangs or impulses to eat starchy carbohydrates is by consuming branched-chain amino acids in the first week. So every meal just have 10 grams of BCAAs. It's pretty cool. But the brain or the body will convert that to just enough glucose to satisfy the brain, but no more. That's the theory, at least. But after a week or two, the mechanisms of feedback loop is usually corrected, from what I've seen. But Good Calories, Bad Calories, great book. I think Gary Vaz is brilliant. He's right here. He's up north. And his new book, Why We Are Fat and What to Do About It, is actually it's a slenderized version of Good Calories, Bad Calories. Really good book. It just came out. But I do agree with Gary on almost everything he says. I think he is meticulously researched. If you want to debunk the calories in, calories out model, he's definitely the guy to read. for sure. How long have you had no sense of smell? Oh, really? Okay. I don't know. It could be neurological, or it just could be that the olfactory organs aren't functioning. I don't know how closely you've looked at it. I do know that if you use, for example, Zicam, oral or nasal Zicam, zinc, that can completely eliminate your sense of smell and taste. So there are a lot of reported incidences of that. I don't think that's necessarily what is I don't necessarily think that's the cause in your case, but it's pretty easy to produce that accidentally by overdosing on something like Zicam. But I don't know. I apologize. Yeah. Sorry? Resveratrol, yeah. I've done a bunch of experimentation with resveratrol, which is the element in red wine, the constituent element or ingredient that people think is attributed to longer lifespan by affecting the sirtuin pathways. So I've looked at it really closely. It's pretty cool. The yeast research related to resveratrol is really cool. If you're interested in yeast, the turnover is really fast, so you can learn a lot. I have taken resveratrol. There's a chapter that was removed from the book that I'll probably be publishing pretty soon, which is fairly amusing, and it's about my experiments with super high dose resveratrol to improve endurance. So if you search super rat, I think it's super rat. There's footage of two different rats. One that was fed high dose resveratrol, it can run twice as far as the control. It's pretty amazing. So I looked at the number of milligrams per kilogram body weight for the rats, and I tried to replicate that, which meant that if I bought a bottle of trans resveratrol that was 98% pure, which isn't that hard to find, that if the dose was 2 pills a day, I would have to take about 60 to 120 a day. Okay. So I decided to consume 60 to 120 a day after doing a fair amount of research. What I didn't realize is in almost all resveratrol supplements, there's something called amodin, which is a laxative. Bad news bears. Yeah. Horrible. Oh my God. It was so bad. And it just so happened that I took that the day before I went to the Sports Science Institute of South Africa to do a running test. It was so bad. In any case, so resveratrol, you can also find, I've used micronized resveratrol, which does not contain amodin, and you can get it on Amazon, actually. You can get micronized 99+% pure trans resveratrol. I would say a few things. I am not taking resveratrol at the effective doses long term for a few reasons. It can affect estrogen receptors, or it can be an estrogen antagonist. I don't know what the long-term effects of that are. Estrogen is very important for men and for women, so I don't want to mess around with that. Secondly, I experienced very severe near arthritic joint pain when I was on resveratrol. And I looked into the forums. I went on the 500 Club forum and realized that's very typical. It can be treated with high-dose vitamin D, and pain will go away, but that doesn't lead me to believe that I've fixed the problem. So I've been avoiding it for that reason. I think that it's seductive because of the potential life extension properties, but I don't know enough about the global effects to use it long term. Yeah, there's been a lot of recent controversy about the mechanism and whether it affects lifespan at all through the stated mechanism. So there's been a lot of controversy related to David's research in the last few years, or in the last 2 years, I would say in particular. So I generally am not one to say let's wait for a consensus, but I am one to say let's wait for more longitudinal data as it relates to the resveratrol, because I do feel that in the quest for longer life, you can end up really negatively impacting your quality of life if you OD on resveratrol at this point in time. So. So my reasons for avoiding modafinil Provigil are, I've used it before. I mean, I've used everything you can possibly imagine. I had a very negative response to Provigil, first and foremost. I had an extended migraine for 5 to 10 hours after using it, which is uncommon for me. Secondly, it's a very strong drug. I mean, it very clearly works for those who have used it, and I'm sure there are more than a few people in this office who have used it. You can be very productive. I used it for writer's block on 2 occasions. And what you find is generally the effect to side effect magnitude is equal in any drug. You just may not be able to identify what the side effect is. So similarly to the resveratrol, I said, you know what, I don't really need this drug. My goal is performance enhancement. For sports, I certainly can find better drugs that have been tested much more frequently. And those are the reasons. The unknown. Fear of the unknown. And a 5 to 10 hour migraine. So other nootropics like Hydrogene, I'm a big fan of Hydrogene, but I also don't use it habitually because the brain in particular is a sensitive instrument. I do not want to fuck up my feedback loops. It's really hard to correct the feedback loops in the brain once you mess them up. It's another reason why you don't want to use high doses of anabolics. And I've used all sorts of anabolics. I mean, plenty of different testosterone esters and so forth. But if you don't do it the right way, you can screw up your hypothalamus, pituitary, testosterone axis, and then you're in a whole world of hurt. And the Hydrogene I've found to be mild in its benefits, but I haven't experienced any side effects. Piracetam, I haven't seen any. I've seen some result from it, but not a whole lot. Aniracetam, oxiracetam, I've used all of those. Hydrogene, I think, is, with the base of literature surrounding it, is one of the better studied. So I've used that on a number of occasions. Yeah, sure. So I'll take if anybody has one more question, or we can just wrap up. Anyone? Bueller? All right. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for coming. Hope you enjoyed it. I had fun.